The NFL draft has not even started yet, and teams are already panicking. A shocking Dexter Lawrence trade may have saved Joe Burrow from demanding out of Cincinnati. The Giants suddenly have 2 top 10 picks, and one quarterback move could completely wreck the plans of half the league. But the wildest part of all, the biggest surprise may still be coming. The NFL draft has not even started yet, but it already feels like the entire league is panicking. One shocking trade may have changed everything before the first pick is even announced. The Cincinnati Bengals just gave up the 10th overall pick for Dexter Lawrence, and while it sounds like an aggressive move to help their defense, it may actually reveal something much bigger going on behind the scenes. Because for the Bengals, this does not feel like a luxury move, it feels like desperation. For years, Cincinnati has relied on Joe Burrow to carry the franchise no matter how bad the defense looked, no matter how many injuries piled up, and no matter how many contract issues dragged into the offseason. But after another disappointing year, there are rumors growing louder that Burrow may not be willing to wait forever. Some fans believe Cincinnati is terrified of wasting another season of Burrow's prime. Reports suggest there is real concern that if the Bengals fail again, Burrow could eventually start looking at other teams the same way Matthew Stafford once looked at leaving Detroit. And one team keeps showing up in those rumors more than any other: the Los Angeles Rams. That is why this Dexter Lawrence move feels so important. The Bengals are not just trading for a defensive tackle. They are trying to prove to Burrow that they are serious about winning right now. They are trying to show him they are done wasting seasons. They are trying to convince him that another playoff run is still possible before frustration starts turning into something much worse. At the same time, the trade may have completely transformed the New York Giants. They now own 2 top 10 picks, giving them a chance to rebuild both sides of their roster in one night. And if the Giants play this right, they may end up being the biggest winners of the entire draft. But that is only where the chaos begins. The Dexter Lawrence trade did more than shock the NFL. It may have completely changed the future of the New York Giants. Before the deal, the Giants were sitting at pick 5 with pressure to find one impact player who could help fix a roster filled with holes. But after getting the 10th overall pick from the Cincinnati Bengals, everything changed. Now the Giants suddenly control 2 of the top 10 picks in the draft. That gives them something every rebuilding team dreams about: flexibility. At pick 5, they could target a defensive star who becomes the new identity of the franchise. A player like Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles could immediately bring energy, toughness, and leadership to a defense that badly needs a tone setter. Then at pick 10, the Giants could attack another major weakness. Offensive line makes a lot of sense because protecting their quarterback has been a major issue for years. There is also growing buzz that they could target a wide receiver to pair with Malik Neighbors and give the offense another dangerous weapon. One name to watch is Jordan Tyson. Reports suggest Giants general manager Joe Scone recently attended his workout personally, which immediately got people around the league talking. Tyson is viewed by some analysts as the best receiver in the entire class, and adding him next to Neighbors could completely change how defenses play against New York. The biggest reason this trade matters is because the Giants are no longer locked into one direction. They can stay aggressive and build around premium positions. They can split the picks between offense and defense. They can even use one of those picks as trade bait if they see an opportunity to move around the board. That is what makes this so dangerous for the rest of the league. While everyone is focused on who goes first overall, the Giants may quietly be setting themselves up to walk away with 2 of the most important players in the entire draft. And if that happens, this trade could end up defining the entire first round. Nobody seems to know exactly where Ty Simpson is going to land, and that uncertainty may be one of the biggest stories of the entire draft. At this point, it feels almost impossible that Ty Simpson makes it out of the first round. The bigger question is who gets desperate enough to move for him. The strongest rumors keep pointing toward the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona desperately needs a quarterback, and if they leave this draft without one, they may be setting themselves up for another lost season. Right now, they do not have the kind of quarterback room that gives fans confidence, and waiting until next year could be a massive gamble. But Arizona also has a major problem. The New York Jets own pick 33, which is the first selection in the second round. That means if Ty Simpson is still available after round 1, the Jets suddenly become the biggest threat to steal him. That is why many people around the league believe Arizona may need to trade back into the late first round. Not because Ty Simpson is guaranteed to become a superstar, but because they cannot afford to risk losing him to another team. Some reports suggest there could be several teams between picks 24 and 32 looking to move down, which would give Arizona a chance to jump into that range and secure Simpson before the Jets even get a chance to think about it. And this is where things get even more interesting. All it takes is one surprise team to enter the quarterback market. Maybe a contender wants a long-term backup. Maybe a team picking in the late first round suddenly falls in love with Simpson's upside. Maybe someone sees him as the perfect developmental quarterback and decides not to wait. That is why Simpson could become the player who changes the entire draft board. Because once one quarterback starts moving, panic usually follows. Teams start reaching, teams start trading, and suddenly a draft that looked predictable turns into complete chaos. But if Ty Simpson goes earlier than expected, he may not be the only quarterback who changes everything. The debate between David Bailey and Arvell Reese may end up deciding the entire top of the draft. For months, most people assumed the choice was simple. David Bailey looked like the safer prospect. He has the size, the production, and the proven ability to get after the quarterback. He feels like the kind of player who could step into the NFL right away and immediately make an impact. That is why so many people believe the New York Jets are leaning toward Bailey. He looks like the more polished player. He is older, more experienced, and already has a clear identity as a pass rusher. Coaches know exactly what they are getting. If a team wants immediate production, Bailey is probably the easier choice. But this is where things get complicated. Arvell Reese may have the higher ceiling. Reese is younger, more explosive, and still feels like a player who has not even come close to reaching his full potential. Some scouts believe he could eventually become one of the best defenders in football if he develops the right way. That is what makes this debate so difficult. Bailey may be the player who helps you sooner. Reese may be the player who becomes a superstar later. And for teams drafting near the top, that difference matters. Do you take the safer player who can give you 8 or 9 sacks a year right away? Or do you gamble on the younger athlete who could eventually become the next Micah Parsons-type defender? Some fans believe Reese is the better long-term bet because of his athleticism and versatility. He can rush the passer, move around the field, and create problems in multiple ways. Others think Bailey's proven production is too hard to ignore, especially for a team that cannot afford to miss on such a high pick. That is why this decision feels so important. Because whichever player gets drafted second will instantly be compared to the other for years. Every sack, every big game, every Pro Bowl appearance will become part of the debate. And if one of them turns into a superstar while the other struggles, teams will never stop hearing about it. Jeremiah Love may end up becoming the most controversial player in the entire draft. Not because anyone doubts his talent. Almost everybody agrees that Jeremiah Love is one of the best pure athletes available. He is explosive, versatile, dangerous in space, and the kind of player who can completely change an offense the moment he touches the ball. The controversy comes from where he might be drafted. Some reports suggest Love could go as high as 3rd overall to the Arizona Cardinals, and that is where the argument starts. Because if Arizona takes a running back that high, it would instantly become one of the boldest moves in the entire first round. The Cardinals still have major problems across the roster. They need a quarterback, they need help on the offensive line, they need pass rushers, they need corners. There are holes everywhere. So when people hear Arizona connected to a running back, even one as talented as Love, many fans immediately start questioning the logic. Some fans believe it would be a massive mistake to use such a premium pick on a running back when the roster still has so many bigger needs. Others think Love is simply too special to pass on. There are people around the league who believe he could become the next great NFL superstar at the position. Comparisons to players like Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson keep showing up because of his ability to impact both the running game and the passing game. But there is still one major problem. Even the best running backs struggle when the offensive line is weak. We have already seen talented backs get stuck behind bad blocking and disappear because there is nowhere to run. No matter how good Love is, he cannot break through a brick wall if Arizona does not fix the line in front of him. That is why this pick feels so risky. Jeremiah Love may be one of the best players in the draft, but if Arizona takes him 3rd overall, they are betting that one elite running back can solve problems that go far beyond the running game. And if they are wrong, the backlash will be brutal. Jeremiah McCoy may be the most talented cornerback in the entire draft, but he could also become the biggest gamble of the first round. If talent were the only thing that mattered, Jeremiah McCoy would probably be a lock to go in the top 15. Some scouts believe he has the movement, speed, instincts, and playmaking ability to become a true shutdown corner in the NFL. That is what makes this situation so complicated. McCoy missed all of last season because of a serious knee injury, and while he looked healthy during his recent workouts, teams are still worried about the long-term outlook. The concern is not whether he can run right now. The concern is whether that knee will hold up over the next 5, 7, or even 10 years. That is a huge question for teams picking in the first round because they are not just drafting for one season. They are trying to find franchise players who can become the foundation of the roster for the next decade. And that is where McCoy becomes one of the hardest prospects in the draft to predict. Some teams may see him as too risky and remove him from their board entirely. Others may look at his talent and decide the upside is worth taking the chance. That is why McCoy could still hear his name called much earlier than people expect. All it takes is one team to fall in love with his potential. A team picking in the late teens or early 20s could decide that if McCoy stays healthy, they are getting one of the best defensive players in the class at a huge discount. That kind of gamble can completely change a franchise if it works out. But if he starts sliding down the board on draft night, fans are immediately going to wonder what happened. And the answer will likely come back to the same thing: medical concerns. Because McCoy may have the talent of a top 10 pick, but injury questions can scare teams faster than almost anything else. And if he falls into the 2nd round, somebody could end up getting the steal of the entire draft. This draft feels different from almost every other year, and that is exactly why so many teams are preparing for chaos. Usually by this point there is a clear gap between the top prospects and everyone else. Teams know who the stars are, who the safe picks are, and where the talent starts to fall off. This year is not like that at all. Many scouts believe there are far fewer true first-round players in this class than normal. Once the first 15 to 20 names come off the board, the difference between the players ranked in the 20s and the players ranked in the 50s becomes very small. That changes everything. If teams feel like they can get a similar player later, they become much more willing to trade down. Instead of reaching for someone they are not fully sold on, they can move back a few spots, pick up extra draft capital, and still land one of the players they already liked. That is why there is so much talk about teams wanting to move around the board. The Arizona Cardinals could move down, the Tennessee Titans could move down, the Cleveland Browns could move down, and if enough teams want to move back, that creates opportunities for aggressive teams to move up. The Dallas Cowboys are one team to watch because they have multiple first-round picks and badly need defensive help. The Detroit Lions could also get aggressive because they are not afraid to make bold moves if they see a player they love. Even the Kansas City Chiefs have enough draft capital to jump up the board if someone unexpectedly starts sliding. That is why this draft could end up being remembered less for who went first overall and more for all the chaos that happened afterward. Because once teams realize there is no major difference between one group of prospects and another, the entire board can start moving fast. And when that happens, nobody's mock draft survives.